Okay. Starts like this. Three people that ate together as one group. They have to do zimun. Zimun means that before they begin benching, one of them, the leader of the group, is going to say, "Let us bench," and then they're going to praise Hashem. Now, normally benching is Brachos Daf. That's the first blessing. Then it's Alaretz Valamazon. That's for the land. And then there's Bnei Yerushalayim. That's the third blessing. And then there's another blessing that doesn't conclude Baruch Hashem. That doesn't conclude, which is Atay V'Ametiv. Kalavina Malkenon. Okay. Here we're adding in one more blessing at the beginning. Before we start, it's called Brachos Daf, and it's just a very quick. Let us bless Hashem, and everyone says bless Hashem. That's another blessing that gets added. So when do we do this? If three people eat together. Okay, we're going to discuss a few cases where it's questionable if the food was kosher or not. If he eats food that was obtained from an amaretz, according to Aaron, someone that doesn't know Kabbalah, it means a farmer, an ignorant person that doesn't necessarily keep the laws of Meiser. So we don't know if he took Meiser or not. So really, he's supposed to take Meiser just in case. Separate Meiser that would be given to the Levi. The word Demai is in a compound word for Da Mai, which means what is this? We don't know what it is. Da means this and Mai is what. Okay, so let's say they ate the Mai. Meiserishan Shnetl Shumase. Meiserishan, that the Truma was taken after Meiserishan. Meiserishan is a tenth of the produce is given to the Levi. The Levi takes a tenth of his produce, which is now 1/100th of the original, and he gives that back he gives it to the Kayan. Now the Kayan was supposed to have received Truma Gedola first, 1 out of 50. Truma is an acronym is a compound for Trei Mimeya, 2 out of 100, which is 1 out of 50. He was supposed to have taken that. The only thing is, this is a case where somehow it was avoided, as we'll see in the Gemara. The first Truma was avoided. So when the Levi is eating his Meiser without the owner of the field doing his part before he gave the Meiser. We'll see later. But there's something, in other words, there's some sort of flaw in this. Meiser Sheni V'Hekdesh Sheniftu, or Meiser Sheni, which is the second tithe, which is produce which is designated to take to Yerushalayim and you eat it there. But you're allowed to redeem it and eat it here and take money over there and spend the money on food there. Okay, we have to see what the issue is with this. Because each one of these things is supposed to have something wrong, and nevertheless, there has to be a chiddush that they can still do zimun. In the shamish, he ate without permission, or maybe he's allowed to eat without permission. He's the waiter. He's the waiter. So he's supposed to be serving the guests, but he's taking food on his own. He ate a kazayas. Kuti is the Samaritans that were placed in the land of Israel, and they converted. And there's a question if their conversion was valid or not. Could be that they converted just because they were afraid of the wild animals that were coming that would eat anyone that wasn't observing the Torah, or it could be that they were sincere. And now in the Gemara in Chulin we learned that at a certain point they said they're not Jewish, but before that point there was a machlekes if it was good. Afterwards they found them that they were worshiping idols. That's what we learned. They weren't good Samaritans. Okay, so all of these cases, even though there's questionable things with each of them, but it's still a good zimun. Now we get worse. Achal tevel. Let's say you ate mamish tevel. No trumas and meisers were taken. Tevel is tav loy. It's not good. My Sarishan Shleina Tzurmasa, your my Sarishan that was given to the Levi, but the Levi didn't do his part. He didn't take off 1/10 of that. My Sasheni Vehektish Shaleiniftu. Or he eats my Sasheni or Hektish. I didn't translate that before. That's things that are sanctified, that wasn't redeemed. He wasn't allowed to eat it. The Meister Sheni had to take it to Yerushalayim, and the Hektish wasn't allowed to eat. V'hasham shachal pachas mikazayas, or the waiter that ate less than a kazayas. V'hanachri, not a kuti, but a non-Jew. I'm curious what the Steinfeld says for nachri. Do they say akam or do they say nachri? When towards the end of the Mishnah, you have a nachri, but the Steinfeld sometimes uses like manuscripts. Does it say nachri? Okay, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a non-Jew. Ein mizamnim alav. All of these cases, you can't do a zima. I'm sorry?
What do you say is half a you? I mean, it's complete you is half a you.
Right, but the kuti, that was the kuti. The kuti was questionable. Now in the next case, one more case, it says ein mizamnim alav. You can't make a zima. Zima means to join together to do this invitation, let's call it. Invitation to them. Women, servants, and children, you don't make a zimun with them. Ad kama mizamnim. How much do they have to eat to make a zimun? Ad kazayas. Until an olive size, they have to eat an olive size. Rabbi Dermat kabeya. Rabbi says no, it needs to be a kabeya, which is double an olive size, the size of an egg. Minhani mili. From where do we know that you have to do this? Amar Ravasi says Damakra, quotes a pasuk. Pasuk says Gadlu Lashemiti, which means glorify. What's the word that Gadlu?
Praise.
Okay. Declare the greatness. Declare the greatness. Yeah. Declare the greatness of Hashem with me. Now the imperative, declare, that's said in a plural ending, Gadlu. That vav at the end means is a plural you. The English you was originally plural. Right? You. Declare Hashem's greatness with me. So that's the plural you, together with me is 3. So Naraim Mashmayachtav, and we shall exalt his name for together. Okay, so that means that 3 people will say this extra praise for Hashem. Rabbi says, Mehacha, from another source, Shem Hashem Ekra, because the name of Hashem I call, will give greatness, will ascribe greatness to Hashem, to our God. Now, Havu is again talking to 2 people. It's a plural. So that's where we see that 3 people have this extra blessing. Amar Rav Chanan is supposed to be Rav Chanan bar Rava, what it says on the side. Very interesting. A lot of people don't know this. How do you know that when you respond Amen, you should not say the Amen louder than the one that says the blessing? Shenemar. It says in the pasuk, Gadol Hashemiti and Remesh Mayachtav. Will declare greatness to Hashem with me, and will exalt his name together. Yes. That means that you don't say it louder than the Mevarech.
Sometimes you hear the guy saying yell all over the shul because he say Kol Hamer.
Kol Kochai.
Kol Koch is not mean the voice.
Where did we have Kol Kochai?
Sit down.
No, but where was that tomorrow? Did we have it here?
Wasn't too long.
People in children, because it's one person hired to another. Something to make sure that
No, I think he's just trying to get it on. It's not a paid position. Okay. So Amar Reb Shimon ben Pazi. Reb Shimon ben Pazi adds to this. He says, how do we know that the translator should not raise his voice higher than the one that read the Torah? See, we don't have this today, but in Babylonia in the ancient times, they would read Torah, and after every verse, they would hear the translation in Aramaic. And
only the Yemenites we discussed.
they still do it?
Yes.
So the Metargim is not allowed to raise his voice. The translator is not allowed to raise his voice higher than the one, louder than the one that read the Torah. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk. I'm sorry.
I think of from Persia.
Moshe Yadah. In Persia, they know that the Yemenites do it. Shenemar, as it says, Moshe Yadaber, V'lekim Yanenu B'kol. Moshe speaks, and God responds with a voice. Now, it doesn't have to say with the voice. Jain Talmud Lemer B'kol. Ma Talmud Lemer B'kol. Doesn't have to say with the voice. Hashem responds. It says, B'kol Shel Moshe. How does God respond? God responds with the voice of Moshe, which means the same loudness that Moshe had. Now, the truth is, Taisus points this out, that it's a little bit different with Hashem and Moshe. The difference is like this, that it would be, Hashem would be considered the reader. And Moshe was the Metargim, was the translator. He was explaining it. So Hashem didn't need to speak loud because he was telling it to Moshe. Moshe needed to speak loud to tell to the Jews. But nevertheless, Hashem said it loud because the one that was saying it over was saying it loud.
Loud stuff.
Tanya Namiach was also taught in a Braisa. This is one part that we had already. The one that's translating can't raise his voice louder than the one that's reading. But the reverse, but if the Targum can't raise his voice as loud as the reader, then the reader should lower his voice. Let's say the translator doesn't have a loud voice. So then the reader should lower his voice as well to be equal to the translator. So it goes both ways.
It says don't go high.
Don't go higher.
It's just because it's not so high.
Right, but maybe from the source that it says, no, that was in Remish Mayachta. I don't know. The Kumar seems to say that they both should be. Okay. Itmar, it was stated. There were two people that ate together. Okay, so Pligi Rav Rabbi Yochanan. This is a machlekes Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. It means Eretz Yisrael and Bavel. Rav is in Bavel, and Rabbi Yochanan is in Eretz Yisrael. This is going to be significant in a moment. So here's Rav, and here's Rabbi Yochanan. And there's an argument. Actually, at the beginning, we don't know who says what. We just know that they argue, and we know that one holds this and one holds that. But who holds what? We're not sure. So the way the Gemara does this is it says, Chadamar, one of them says, Imratzal Zamin Mizamnin, that they can make a zimun. But Chadamar, one says, Imratzal Zamin Ein Mizamnin. You had this in the other one says that they can't make a zimun. So we're talking about three people in the Mishnah can definitely do zimun. That means to do the invitation to bench. What about two people? We know they're not obligated, but are they allowed to if they want to? So it's machlekes Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. Tanan, we'll start in the Mishnah. We're going to try to prove who's correct and ask questions on the other one. It says, three people that ate together, they obligated to do a zimun. See, three yes, two no. How does he say that two make a zimun? The Gemara says over there it's talking about an obligation. This is talking about voluntary. They weren't discussing the obligation. They're discussing are you allowed to if you want to. The Mishnah was discussing the obligation. Tashma, come and listen. Another source. Over here it says that 3 people eat together. They're obligated to do this invitation to bench, but they're not allowed to divide. That means one person can't leave and bench on his own. They have to stay together. Now, this tells me that 2 people cannot do the benching on their own, because otherwise they could divide. One can bench and leave the other to bench voluntarily on their own. You see, 3 yes and 2 can't do the benching, and this is a better source, because here it's saying that one can't leave because they're going to lose out on the zimun. What do you mean? Maybe 2 can do the benching anyway. My answer is Shani Hassam, the Kavalu B'chayvim Mikara. There's a difference between if you're doing the zimun because you're obligated, or if you're doing the zimun as a voluntary invitation. Obligated is much better. Why? Because it says that Gadol HaMitzvah Bais Misha Ein Mitzvah Bais. It's greater to do it out of being commanded than when you're not commanded. This is in the schools. This is very obvious. If you give the kids a puzzle, figure out, they'll spend like a few hours figuring out the puzzle. But if you tell them it's a test, you say it's so not fair. You didn't tell us the thing. Like, it's harder to do it when you're told to. Are you doing it on your own? You can do it on your own. So when it comes to serving Hashem, it's better to do it when you're told. That's Gadol HaMitzvah Bais. So it's harder, but the reward is greater. So here what's happening is that they had an obligation to do zimun. If one of them leaves, then it's possible it will only be voluntary to do zimun, and that's not as good as doing it out of obligation. That's why they can't divide. In other words, we don't have a support. You don't have a real source that you can't do zimun with the 2. Could be you could, but it's just voluntary. Toshima, come and listen to Here, we're talking about the waiter. He's serving 2 people. So it says, he's allowed to eat with them, even though they didn't give him permission. They didn't give him explicit permission. But he's allowed to eat with them. Why? Because to allow them to do the zimun. So he's going to eat something. But let's say he's serving 3 people. He's not supposed to eat unless they give him permission to eat.
They have to work their hands on his hair.
That's right. That's right. That's what we had before. So, okay. So what are we seeing over here? That 2 people need a 3rd person to be able to do zima, and that's why he's allowed to eat. That's why the shamash can eat, because they need this other fellow. That means that if the opinion that says that you need 3, that you can't do a zima with 2 is correct. Otherwise, why should he eat? Let them do it. They don't need him. It's just like 3 people. Like Umar says, Shani Hassam, no. It's different. They rather do it as an obligation. Not to they know they can do it voluntarily, but they want to do it as an obligation, so he eats to make it an obligation. Okay. Toshima, come and listen. It says Nashim is
he obligated to. If he eats, it becomes an obligation.
Yeah.
But who says he's obligated to eat?
right.
No.
What it means is, I don't know if he's obligated to eat. What it means is that it's assumed. There's an assumed permission for him to take the food because they would want him to do that to be able to get that extra thing.
If it's a on the 2 people or on the 1?
So 1 second.
You gotta keep on reading.
On the 2.
I hear. I'm not sure. Toshima. Noshim is amnis latzman. Women are able to do a zimun amongst themselves. This is Purim's coming up. They have the ladies that have their own Megillah readings because they're allowed to read the Megillah for themselves. So another thing that they're allowed to do is they're allowed to make their own zimun. They're not supposed to do a zimun together with men, or Megillah reading. They can hear a man read the Megillah, but if they want to read the Megillah on their own, they have to do it
One lady can read it. If
Yeah.
everybody is late.
Yeah. It's not just a kalisha. It's not appropriate for a woman to be in that position.
They can also have their own suda and their own times.
Yeah. So keep on reading. So okay. So the avodim mizamnim latzma, and servants can also do mizimant on their own. Nashim ba'avadim ketanim, women, servants, and children, that they cannot combine together. Okay, now they cannot combine together to do mizimant together. Now we're going to see in a minute why I'm keeping this a little vague, because the Gemara is going to have a first thought about it, and then it's going to happen. So v'hameya nashi, I'm skipping the parentheses. V'hameya nashi katrei gavri dami. 100 women would really be like 2 men. Now the explanation is like this. They don't really have they don't have a minion. So even if you have 100 women, you don't really have a minion there. So it's going to be less. 100 women is considered less than a minion. So how much is it like? They're allowed to do a ziman. They don't have an obligation to do a ziman. So they're not like 3. They're not like 1. So they're similar to 2, which means they're allowed to do a ziman. And we say that women can do their own ziman. You see, you can do a ziman with 2 people. It sounds like it's a proof that you can do ziman with just 2. Gemara says, Shani Hasim Dikadeus. No, you're not using 2. You're using 3. And 3, they're allowed to. You have different deus, means you have different people there. So therefore, they can do a ziman. If that's the case, so that you're dealing with 3 people, and you can do a ziman, and they're not obligated, but they're still able to. So nashim va'avadim imratza lezamin in mezamna. Am Eily v'ikadeis. Why can the women and the servants not do it? If that's considered deus, that you have 3 people there, why can't they do a woman with servants? Why can't they do it together? Gemara says, no, you didn't explain. Shani Hasim Mishum Pritzusa. It's not good for the women to be sitting together with the servants and doing these activities together. And the servants shouldn't do it with the children, because it's also not good for servants to be together with the children because of other concerns that there could be. Also, similar type of concerns. Okay. Testayim, now the Gemara says, let us try to prove who said what. We had a machlekes Rav and Rabbi. We didn't know who said what. One says that 2 people can do a ziman. Another one says that 2 people cannot.
I got that down.
You figured it out?
Rav ends in the base, that's 2.
2.
Wow.
So let's take a look.
I got from you. You always have a little
Yeah.
stick.
So we'll try to do it. Let's see if that's going to work.
What's the perfume on his hair?
Goes like this. This time, let it be proven, the Rav, the Amar Matzah L'Zamin Ein Mizam. Let's try to prove that Rav is the one that says that you can't do the Ziman with 2. The Amar Rav Dimi Bar Yosef Amar Rav, because Rav Dimi Bar Yosef says in the name of Rav, if 3 people are eating together, and one of them goes out to the market, they call to him, and they do a Ziman. Aha. So one person left. And what are they doing to do ziman? They're calling. Time of the curtain light. They have to call to him. What's that proof? Halai curtain light. But if they don't call him, they can't do the ziman. See, Rav must hold that 2 cannot do the ziman. The Gemara says no. Shani Yasam Dikulei B'chayvim Yikara. You can't prove that because could be that they have the obligation. They want to do it in the obligatory way, not in the voluntary way. So therefore, they're calling him to do it in the real way with the obligation. Ella, let's do it the other way. Sistayim, the Rabbi Yochanan who the Amar and Ratzal L'Zamin Ein Mizam. Let's do it the other way. Let's try to prove that the Rabbi Yochanan is the one that says that 2 people cannot do a ziman. Amar Rabba Bar Barchanan Rabbi Yochanan. That's a very common peer. Rabba Bar Barchanan, name of Rabbi Yochanan, says like this: Shnaim shachlu ka'achas. two people eat together, one of them can fulfill his obligation of benching by listening to his friend bench. So we ask, Micah Mashman, what is he trying to say? That one person can bench and the other one listens? A big deal. Tanina, that's a Mishnah. Shama v'layana yatsa. If he hears the benching, even if he doesn't respond to me, he's still yatsa. Rama Rab Zera explained this. It's coming to tell me that there was no zimun. Now, the way zimun works is that one person, in the olden days, zimun would work, that one person would bench, one person would say, let us bench, everyone would respond, and then that person would bench, and he would bench for everyone. Everyone else would just listen. There would be one person that would do the whole benching. If there's other ways of doing this, but it's not considered zimun, is one person says the benching and everyone listens, but that's not not everyone. If there's two people there, one person would recite the benching and someone else can listen. But that's not considered a benching for the congregation. It's considered his own benching. Another person is being yaitze as an individual, listening as well. So what we're seeing here is if one person is being yaitze because the other one is benching, then that's not considered a zimun. That's considered that he's benching for him. So that means that two people don't have a zimun. This is a good proof that Rabbi Yochanan holds that he can't do the benching with two people, which would leave us stuck this time that Rav holds that two can do a zimun. Amalei Rabba Baravuna l'Ravuna. I'm sorry, Rabba Baravuna asks to Ravuna. The rabbis that come from the west, which in Persia, the west is Israel, right? Amri, they say, if they want to do a zimun, mizamnin, they are allowed. And who lives in Israel? Rabbi Yochanan. My love, Rabbi Yochanan. They must have heard it from Rabbi Yochanan that you can do a zimun with two people voluntarily. He answers him, he says, like, they actually heard it from Rav before Rav moved to Bavel. Rav came from Bavel, went to Eretz Yisrael to learn by Rabbi. Remember Rabbi asked him to wash his hands. Remember he was learning by Rabbi and Rabbi together with Rabbi. Rabbi explained to him, it just means that you're going to lead the benching. So Rav was from Bavel. He went to Eretz Yisrael. And then he went back to Bavel. So the people of Eretz Yisrael heard the halacha from Rav before he went to Bavel. But really, Rav holds that two people are allowed to have a zimun. Rabbi Yochanan holds that two people cannot. Why are people from Eretz Yisrael saying it? Because when Rav was in Bavel, that's what he thought. Okay, Gufa. Rav later on went back. No. Rabbi Yochanan lived in Eretz Yisrael. When Rav was in Eretz Yisrael, that's what he taught. And then he came back to Bavel. Okay. Yeah. Now the reason why we don't do these things today is because we're not able to concentrate for extended periods to be able to listen to all the words. You have to hear all the words. We can hardly do that. I think they say that 8 seconds is the concentration. Well, we won't make it through. Okay. Yeah, we won't make it through the Shemona Esrei. Gufa, it was taught before. Amar Abdimi Bar Yosef Amar Rav. Rabbi Bar Yosef says in the name of Rav. Shleisha Shachlu Kachas. Yatzach and Memlashuk. 3 people ate together, and one of them went to the marketplace. They called to him, and they do a zimun. He's out there in the marketplace. The cities weren't so big then. He went out. There was some stand over there. It would be comparable to us to a lemonade stand. It wasn't, a small place. They called out of the house. They called him. So Amar Abaya says, "Who the Karalevani?" He has to respond as well. They're calling to him and he's responding. Okay. Amar Marzutra says, "V'le'aman al b'shleisha." You can only do this where one person left and he didn't come back, but you can call to him and he's going to answer. He's going to say, "Yeah, Baruch," whatever. So But if there's 10 people, you're doing that other type of zimun, which we're going to learn about, that you can have. There's a difference if there's 3 people or 10 people, possibly 100 or more. There's the added names of Hashem if the numbers are larger. So if there's 10 people, then the person has to return. It can't just be calling to him in the market. Maskefla Ravashi says, 1 second. Adarabba. On the contrary, Ibcha Mestabra should be exactly the opposite. Tisha Nirin Kasara. You have 9 people, that looks like you have 10. But Shnayim Nirin Kishleisha, but 2 people don't look like 3. So if you're looking for just appearance, person should be there. You can get away with having 9 and people will still think that there's 10. I think more than 5, I think you have to start counting. But just at a glance, how many numbers you can get at a glance without going 1, 2, 3, 4, you can get like 5. That's the limit. Then you have to start dividing up 3, 3, 3, you're doing patterns or whatever. But to see 3 people, that you can see right away if there's 2 or 3. But to see 9 people, that you would have to start counting. So why does the 10th person have to come back? And the 3rd person doesn't have to be there. If there's 2 people, it's very clear that he's not there. And if there's 9 people, it's not so clear. So he responds. He doesn't answer this. He says, that 10 people, that's just the fact. 10 people he has to come. The Gemara says, my timer. What's the reason? Even the Ba'alat Kurshim Shemayim, because you have to mention Hashem's name, you add in Elikeno when you have 10 people with the Zimun. So, if there's less than 10 people, it's not appropriate. It's not Derech Eretz. Derech Eretz. Right? Amar Abaya says, Naktinan. We've established that Shnayim Sha'achlu Ka'achas Mitzvah Lechalek. 2 people eat together, it's a mitzvah for them to bench independently. Not one person should bench for both of them. Tanya Nami Hachi was also taught in the Brisa, Shnayim Sha'achlu Ka'achas Mitzvah Lechalek. It's a mitzvah for them each to bench. And not for one person to do the benching and the other one sits there and listens. When do we say that that's the case? Everyone should bench. When they're both sages. Yeah, what's the opposite of a sefer? A board. But if one's a sefer and one's a board, that's the same word, Hebrew and English. A board. So sefer, mevarach, a board yaitzer. The sefer can do the benching, and the board, he doesn't know the benching, so he just listens. The sefer over here means a sage, someone that knows the benching. Okay. Amar Rava, I'm always curious, the song that we have for benching, I wonder where it came from. All of us learned the benching like that. I don't know what the source is for that, but it helped us all bench. And, Amar Rava says, Ha Milsa Amrisana. The following I said, V'tamra Mishmei de Reb Zera Kavasi, and it was also said in the name of Reb Zera, exactly like what I said. It's interesting that he's saying this. He says, look, I said something that I said on my own, and they said in the name of Reb Zera like me, which is good. 3 people ate together. If it comes time to benching, one person is still eating, so he should stop to allow the other 2 to bench. But if one person wants to bench, the other 2 don't have to stop to allow him to bench. He has to wait. You have an obligation. You have to sit there and wait. 2 people don't have to stop for one person to bench. For Rav Papa, Afsik Leila Abba Marberei. Rav Papa stopped for his son Abba Mar to bench Iyu V'chad, him and someone else. Rav Papa and someone else stopped for him. Umar says, Shani Rav Papa told him Shur Sedinu Dava. Rav Papa did with him Shur Sedin. He really didn't have to stop.
If one person wants to bench, people haven't started. You go on and ask them to people come to the bench. The answer.
If one person wants to bench,
Like at a wedding, go to a wedding.
yeah, it's really supposed to be if there's 2 people want to bench,
Right.
so one person should stop. But
but
you
here
can ask because maybe they want to bench. They can tell you, no, I'm not benching.
They're not obligated.
You're not benching. I mean, they're not. Gonna
No, so what they
actually-
but they have to stop for the amount of time that it takes to say Brachos Hazan, and they have to stop there. I'm
They have
not
to
for the
stop
amount
eating,
of it.
right?
They have to stop eating throughout the bracha of Hazan.
There's not a custom that we do. We ask two people to stop eating so I can bench.
Yeah, I guess you're asking them to do with the Mishra. Then they go back to eating.
But they're not obligated.
They're not obligated. Rav Papa did with Mishra said, and it's interesting. In the Siyum, you say Abba Bar Papa, right? One of them is Abba Bar Papa, but here his name is Abba Mar. Think so? Oh, Abba Mari. So maybe it's Abba Mari. Maybe that's what it is, Abba Mari. Over here he's called Abba Mari, and the Siyum he's called Abba Mari. Okay. It could be. Someone said that there were different Rav Papas, and they weren't really the same. Okay, Yehuda bar Mereimar, Umar bar Ravashi, Baravachami Difti. These three Amiraim, Mar bar Ravashi, they're very late in the Amoraic period. But Karchi Rifta, they were eating the bread, Bahadi Adadi together. None of them were greater than the other one, older or greater, that they should lead the benching. Let's read the parentheses. Yasvi Vakami Bailu. They had this question. This that it says three people that ate together, they have to do a ziman. Is that because there's one person that's greater? But if they're all equal, then maybe it's better to divide and everyone should bench alone. And so what happened was Baruch Inish Lenafshi. They each benched alone. Also, they came in front of Mereimar. This was Yehuda's father. He started Yehuda bar Mereimar. He came to Mereimar Amalahu. He said to them, Yidei bracha yatzasem. You were yaitz the bracha bechsamasen. But Yidei ziman la yatzasem. You weren't yaitz ziman. They say, well, okay, so let's do a ziman now. It says, ain't ziman l'mafrei. You can't go back. Okay, now, let's say someone that didn't eat shows up at the meal, and they're starting to do the benching. They're saying, so what does he say? Rav Zvid Amar, Baruch Hu Mavayrach. Rav Zvid says that he says, Baruch Hu Mavayrach.
So he hasn't eaten at all. That's why he can't say Shecham.
He hasn't eaten, right? He can't say Shechalna. That's the point. We say Baruch Shechalna Mishlei, blessed to see that we ate from his food, that we ate from him, which means from Hashem. But he didn't eat. So what does he say? So he says Baruch Hu Mavayrach. Now Tosfos over here says the quotes Bahag that we say Baruch Hu Mavayrach Shmei Tamid Leilam Vad. Rav Papa Amar, this is an acronym for that. I forget what it is. It's, something that if you don't know this, then something I forget. Rav Papa says Aina Amen. Papa says that you respond to Amen. But there's no machlekes between these two opinions, Rav Zvid and Rav Papa. Depends. Depends. If you showed up and they said, let us bless, so you say Baruch Mavarach, you bless. If you showed up when they were actually doing the blessing, the Varich, that we say Baruch, what's the response there? Baruch Shechalno. If they're saying Baruch, then he just says Amen. Ashkechinu the Kamri Nevarich, Chaimer Baruch Mavarach, Ashkechinu the Kamri Baruch, Hainamin. Tani Chada Hainamin Acher Bechais of Reis Meshubach. We have one brisa that says that if someone says Amen after his own blessings, that's praiseworthy. But Tani Yidach, we have another brisa that says Reis Meguna. That's shameful. The Gemara says like Kash, it's not a question. But by Yerushalayim of the Shah brachas, it depends. If it's at the end of a sequence of brachas, end of a series of brachas, then you can respond Amen. So, for example, after by Yerushalayim, you say Amen. In the Sfardim, after Hashkivenu, do they say Amen? Well, how does Hashkivenu end?
How they do it in Yemen.
Amen.
No. Shem Ram Yisrael Ad. The Sfardim respond Amen. And do they respond Amen to Yishtabach as well? At the end of Yishtaba? So, at the end of any sequence of brachas, you respond to main. There's a difference for Ashkenazim as well. And it goes like this, that if you're finishing the bracha together with the chazan, then you're not supposed to respond to main because you're not supposed to respond to main to your own brachas. But if it's the type of bracha that there is a possibility to respond to main to, for example, Hashkiveinu Shem Ram Yisrael Ad, when you're finishing together with the chazan, you do respond to main. Even for Ashkenazim.
Doesn't you wait a little bit before and chazan finish and then you say amen and then you finish yourself?
That's only if it's a bracha that you're allowed to respond. If it's a place that you're allowed to respond. In benching, we don't respond to main to any brachas unless you're at the break. Right? We don't respond. I think the whole benching, we respond to, no. But not if you're in the middle of the bracha. I don't think we respond to that. At least in the back of the siddur. What does it have here? Does it have the things? Yeah, if you look over here, it says that in the middle of benching, you're like in the middle of the first pasuk of Shema. Emtza birchsamazon, what it says, Emtza birchsamazon. In the middle of benching, everything is forbidden. All responses are forbidden. Kedusha, everything is forbidden. See that? Also. Pretty serious, benching. Okay. Abaya anile bekala. Abaya would respond to main to Bani Yerushalayim. Why? Because the workers didn't have to say the last blessing because that was only rabbinic, and they didn't have to take the time off from the work to say that. So he would say it very loud so that they should get up. Because they didn't have to say Ateva Meitiv, which is the fourth blessing of benching. And Ravashi would answer Amen quietly, so that they shouldn't take Ateva Meitiv lightly, because he would respond to Amen, everyone would just leave. So he would say it quietly so that people should continue on to the rest. Okay, let's stop right here.